12 years and $700 million gets you an impressive hour-long demo of your single-player campaign that crashes mid-stream. Not great, but Squadron 42 does look good, with so much Hollywood talent, including the likes of Henry Cavill, already joining an insane roster of movie stars. Still though, Squadron 42 was delayed again to 2026, and reporting has indicated a lengthy, troubled development for Star Citizen, with no end in sight, funding starting to dry up, and skepticism that deadlines will be met. One of 2025's big releases is Obsidian Entertainment's Avowed, and if you want to play the game 5 days early, you will have to spend $90 plus tax for the premium edition. Paid perks like this are becoming more and more common and more frustrating, especially as we're seeing this early access being put behind even more expensive versions of games. Xbox has said that they are still committed to consoles as series sales have plummeted, and Xbox boss Phil Spencer has said that they don't see the purpose of a mid-gen refresh this time around. Even Sony themselves have had trouble convincing people to cough up $700 for the new PlayStation 5 Pro. But for specifically Xbox, they have started a new marketing campaign clearly aimed at trying to continue to distance Xbox from just consoles. Obvious why they have to do this, and yeah, it's a bit silly. This is an Xbox, this is a bento box. Thank you, Microsoft. I think we all know the difference, and also the lack of confidence that they have in their hardware up against Sony and Nintendo. Fortunately for Xbox, they are seeing the benefits of their recent acquisition of Activision Blizzard in the form of Black Ops 6, a true hit this holiday season with a much more positive reception compared to last year's laughable Modern Warfare 3, it just felt like a DLC, and it really was that. Black Ops 6's zombies and campaign specifically are highlights. I've been very much enjoying playing zombies with family, just a great time with what feels like a good evolution of the zombie formula. I am a fan. However, Black Ops 6 still has run into issues with paywall bettered audio, yes, you heard that right, and accusations with evidence that AI has been used for certain calling cards, which aligns with reporting that indicated the company, like many others, would utilize the controversial tech in their games moving forward. Even despite this controversy, it hasn't, and nothing really can stop the behemoth that this franchise is. After the fantastic Mass Effect Legendary Edition a few years ago, many of us wondered if something similar would happen for Dragon Age, games that could definitely use a bit of a graphical upgrade. EA BioWare has explained why that probably won't happen, and it's largely because hardly anyone left at the developer knows how to use its old engine. More of an indictment on how the studio really does exist in name only these days. Creative director John Epler, who joined the company in the early days working on the original 2009 Dragon Age Origins, said it would be a challenge as the older games were made on different engines that current staff lack experience with. Epler said, "I think I'm one of maybe 20 people left at BioWare who actually used Eclipse. Remastering Dragon Age is something that's not going to be as easy as Mass Effect, but we do love the original games." And he further didn't entirely shut down the idea, but added it would be extremely difficult for them. Recently, the GTA Trilogy received some massive improvements in the ire of its former developer. Check out my last video discussing all of that if you haven't already. Now, GTA fans have discovered some rather notable changes, and one of which is a clear tease at GTA 6, as one of the textures featured in last year's reveal trailer has been spotted in the remasters. This is not the first time this has happened, as a random painting of what appears to be a GTA 6 house was spotted in the games back in 2021. That has been heavily speculated upon for the last few years, and now gives more credence that Rockstar is indeed teasing fans with small Easter eggs like this. Based on the timing of all this, have to believe a new announcement or trailer 2 for GTA 6 is right around the corner, especially with the 1-year anniversary quickly approaching of the first trailer. Rockstar has been silent for far too long. One company that has been struggling to figure out how to adapt their games is Ubisoft, as evidenced with the god-awful Assassin's Creed movie years ago, and the Division movie that was announced a few years ago and has seemingly gone nowhere and remains MIA. Now though, another project, Splinter Cell, has officially been declared dead. A movie that was supposed to star Tom Hardy as Sam Fisher back in 2013. Yes, it took 12 years to get this official cancellation. The project's producers said it died due to not being able to get a script or budget rights, things that are very important for a movie. Unfortunate. Following Baldur's Gate 3, which continues to have a massive player base that only continues to rise with time, Larian has recently given indication of when their next game may be coming, and it appears to be a long wait we're in for. Larian Studios head Sven Vink suggested during an acceptance speech at an award ceremony in Malaysia Asia last month that fans could expect the studio's next game in around 2028 or 2029. All eyes will be on whatever that game becomes. We do know, though, it is not Baldur's Gate 4. A lot of game companies have struggled in 2024, with mass layoffs being reported widespread throughout this industry, and Square Enix is yet another one of the big publishers suffering as the company's stock recently tanked. All of this coming after sales disappointments with their recent Final Fantasy games and a roadmap in 2025 that isn't exactly very promising. Now, another company that has been learning lessons the hard way is Warner Brothers with their live service experiences. Obviously, earlier this year, Suicide Squad was a massive blunder, massive disaster, but they recently admitted that Multiverses also underperformed, contributing to another $100 million hit to revenue in its games business. The company's CFO saying, "We took another $100 million plus impairment due to the underperforming releases, primarily Multiverses this quarter, bringing total write-down year-to-date to over $300 million in our game businesses, a key factor in this year's studio profit decline." A hell of a decline, yes. Infamously, just earlier this year, they admitted that Suicide Squad left a $200 million hole in their video game division, and it continues to get deeper and deeper, and unfortunately, it does appear that they're only continuing to double down in this area. We did see some news recently on Hogwarts Legacy 2. Supposedly, this upcoming game is coordinating with the big picture storytelling with the Harry Potter TV show storylines. We don't necessarily know what direction they're going to be taking with Hogwarts Legacy 2 in terms of setting and all of that, but they do want to have the benefit of having the TV show and obviously the game so they can enjoy success on both fronts, which makes sense, but it is very difficult because video games are just, it's a very iterative medium with a lot of chaos that happens with development and things get pushed back, deadlines and all that, and just managing both at the same time, especially with the TV show as well, has its own issues. Just seems like a recipe for a disaster. But Warner Brothers, like I said, some of the mandates that they may put on Hogwarts Legacy 2 has freaked a lot of people out. We did see earlier this year that they thought that Hogwarts Legacy 2 should be a live service, which, again, Warner Brothers is just, they love shooting themselves in the foot more than anybody, and after losing $300 million because of live services, it feels like they should see the writing on the wall, but they haven't. And again, it is worth mentioning that Hogwarts Legacy has now sold 30 million units. I think that most companies would be more than happy with that success, but Warner Brothers wants more. They want microtransactions. Is it going to be something like Ubisoft, or is it going to be something that damages the overall gaming experience? Only time will tell. Now, Dragon Age The Veilguard has been one of 2024's most controversial releases, and there's been many question marks in regards to its performance and sales, and some recent data that is coming out of the UK indicates that the game might not be doing all that great. As reported here by Gaming Bold, Dragon Age The Veilguard's UK sales similar to Dragon's Dogma 2, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but this is the kicker. Games Industry's Christopher Dring noted that they're a little less, though not far off from massive Star Wars Outlaws, a comparison that I do not think BioWare and EA want, especially because Star Wars Outlaws only sold 1 million copies in the month since it launched. That is a disaster, especially with the amount of money that Ubisoft invested into Star Wars Outlaws, the licensing and all of that, but especially with BioWare and Dragon Age, they have spent 10 years working on this, hundreds of millions of dollars invested, and if they only have 1 million sales, that's a disaster. It was said that it's hard to know what EA's expectations were. I imagine they were pretty grand, but it seems just fine. It's not earth-shattering, but it isn't terrible. Dring said he didn't see a huge amount of marketing from EA leading up to the release. He also revealed that Veilguard did a little less than Star Wars Outlaws, though it's not far off. Now, in terms of reception surrounding this game, again, it's been everywhere. We saw critics, coming out with universal praise, but users, it's been much more mixed. As you can see on Steam, it has a 71%. As more reviews come in, this review score continues to get lower, and it probably will lower with time. But we did see another voice enter the arena giving their own perspective on Dragon Age The Veilguard, and it came from Moon Studios CEO, the developer behind the Ori games. And he described Dragon Age The Veilguard writing as infantile and terrible. Yes, he went all out with slamming the experience. He took to his X account talking about how in the 80s, TV shows, there was a lot of low-effort trash. And then he said things like The Simpsons, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air started dropping, the TV medium, the writing started getting better and better. And then The Sopranos came about, and it was even better. And then The Wire, Breaking Bad, all of this stuff. There's premiere television to premiere writing nowadays. But he says looking at games now, it's clear to see that we're apparently moving back to the stone age of political correctness. I just watched a Dragon Age playthrough, and it's quite unfathomable how infantile and terrible the writing is. And yes, that preachy political stuff has been going viral on social media with some of the clips, and it is unflattering. It's word of mouth that BioWare needed with this new Dragon Age game, and they aren't getting it. It's been the complete opposite, turning people off of the experience, and this is something that I talked about before launch, saying that this game could not be divisive, and it has been very much just that. And he said about this game, Dragon Age, everything feels sanitized and dehumanized. I don't know why we're suddenly thinking that this is okay. Your job as a writer is to write about things that are heartfelt, interesting, and true, to draw people into that world that you created, and if this is the best that you can come up with, you shouldn't be a writer in the first place. I hate to sound so harsh because I'm sure these people had the best intentions in mind, but this is what happens when art is created by amateurs, when we have to walk on eggshells and don't dare to approach difficult subjects. You end up with a bland and bad project instead of art. Always approach writing from a human angle first, draw from your own experiences, and dare to approach subjects that might seem risky, because often magic happens, we're okay with making ourselves vulnerable. And I will say the biggest indictment on Dragon Age The Veilguard is really that you cannot be evil or say any mean things in the game. For a role-playing game that's supposed to have choices and consequence, I just find that insane. We're potentially looking at what can only be described as a historic move. One of the top video game developers in the industry, they have rose the last couple of years. They have become the premier developer in which everybody is looking at everything and anything that they do, from new IPs to previous IPs. This year, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree was met to universal acclaim, so everybody is looking to whatever From Software is doing, and it looks like Sony is now looking to acquire the parent company, Kadokawa. This according to Reuters. They say, citing two sources familiar with the situation, reports that talks between Sony and Kadokawa are ongoing. And I believe Sony previously invested into Kadokawa by like 10 to 15%, so them making this big move to finally take this company, it's just a brilliant business move. It makes all the sense to go after them. They did something similar years ago with Insomniac Games, in which they only spent like $200-300 million, and that is an investment that has paid off. Now, this report goes on to mention that Kadokawa Corporation is a Japanese media conglomerate. They own a couple of other things, from manga to film production, DVD sales, but to video game enthusiasts like myself and yourself, Kadokawa also owns a majority share in Fromsoft, where the studio behind Elden Ring, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and the Dark Souls games, and also a couple of other, obscure games that people may not remember, like this one, Kuon. Underrated Japanese horror game years ago, in which never got really the love it deserved, and also getting hands on these copies, not very easy. Also got to show some love to Armored Core, just so many hits over the years from FromSoft. Kadokawa also owns Dwango, a Japanese telecoms and media company which owns developer Spike Chunsoft, most recently responsible for this year's Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, and earlier this year they also acquired the Tokyo studio known in recent years for Octopath Traveler, Octopath Traveler 2, and Mario and Luigi Brothership. Now, there is another angle to this situation in which the, consolidation of this video game industry continues to be a massive problem, but Sony as a company, this is just a brilliant move to make, and if they can do it, I don't blame them at all. I just wonder how costly this may or may not be. But after a year of so much disappointment and so much chaos, from Bungie crumbling, The Last of Us Online, a project that there was so much resources invested into, years of development, that ended up being canceled. They spent $400 million on Concord. Lego Horizon crumbled to the ground, didn't get the reception I think Sony was looking for. You can also look to the Until Dawn remake, that didn't go that well either. An expensive Horizon remaster that wasn't asked for. More unappealing live services like Fair Games on the way. Then there's the PSN requirement and Sony's mismanagement of really all of its studios this console generation. There's definitely a reality in which they screw up From Software. You damn know all of their games will get that stupid PSN requirement. There's just been a lot of failure across the board, and this would be a massive win and a way to turn around things for the future in a way that I just don't think people understand. Now, there is a flip side to this, in which Sony acquiring a company like this, there could be some massive layoffs that end up happening, and it's also going to be a purchase aimed at anime, which Sony's been going out of their way to really have control over that market. But I think there is real danger that by acquiring a company like From Software, they are damaged, to which a lot of the creative individuals don't want to work for Sony. We've seen what's happened with Blizzard, with Xbox, and many of these, massive mergers that end up happening. There's just a lot of redundancies that happen, and a lot of creatives that just don't want to work with these giant companies. So there's many different angles in which this may end up not being that great, but as a business move for Sony, it does make indeed a lot of sense. In other somewhat Sony-related news, last month we did see that Sony delisted the original Horizon Zero Dawn on PC, and again forced that PSN requirement for the remaster. There is an argument to be made for why this requirement is going to be a thing with live services, but single-player experiences just feels like Sony shooting themselves in the foot, preventing people from 80 countries, territories from playing these experiences. Just feels like Sony's throwing money into the wind when they shouldn't be doing it. It just doesn't make any sense other than the business decisions they're making. We'll get to that in a second, but we did see some new details in Ghost of Yotei, which will featuring a less repetitive open world. This comes in a recent interview at the New York Times. They said one of the challenges, the game director, that comes with making an open world game is the repetitive nature of doing the same thing over again. We want to balance against that and find unique experiences. One of the biggest critiques of Ghost of Tsushima was the Ubisoft-esque open world. I think that they did a good job fleshing it out, but there's definitely a lot of repetitive encounters that you have when you're traversing the open world with Jin Sakai. But Yotei definitely has an uphill battle. Many individuals not crazy about this series being an anthology. They wanted more Jin Sakai, Ghost of Tsushima 2, a true sequel. Sucker Punch Productions clearly did not want to go in that direction. They're taking it anthology, and I'm okay with that, but I definitely have some questions in regards to this protagonist in the story, but I am looking forward to seeing it, as this is one of the only first-party Sony exclusives that we know about that is coming in the near future. We have also seen that Sony talked about their recent success last quarter, and yes, they're saying Black Myth Wukong is the reason for that. Sony's Game and Network Services division, which includes PlayStation, brought in $7 billion approximately during the second quarter of the financial year, July to September 2024. That is a significant increase of 12% year-on-year, Sony said. Profit tripled to approximately $911 million, up a whopping 184% year-on-year. Those positive results were good enough for Sony to raise its financial year forecast for its gaming business. So despite all the chaos surrounding Concord, The Last of Us Online, Bungie, and so on and so forth, Sony is still winning this year. Sony said the boost to revenue came from an increase in sales of non-first-party games, and they specifically mentioned later on in their recent investor call that those games that were responsible for that, the non-first-party games, is a new sports title, which is likely indicating EA Sports FC 25, massive game, these FIFA games are always big in Europe. And they also said an action RPG title from China, Black Myth Wukong, obviously, just a massive experience on Steam, and it appears to be PlayStation, and it made them tons and tons of money. And with a year in which they spent $400 million, threw it away with Concord, they needed a success, and it appears they got that with Black Myth. Now, we did see Sony reflecting on Concord, and if you're looking for lessons to be learned, they certainly keep saying that, but they also had a lot of word salad in this. Sony's president reflected on why Concord failed, and he said, "Currently, we're still in the process of learning," which, terrible character design, oversaturated genre. I think the answers were there even before they made these investments. And basically, with regards to new IP, of course, you don't know the result until you actually try it. You know, $400 million is a lot to try. So for us, for our reflection, we probably need to have a lot of gates, especially for a studio that's unproven, including user testing or internal evaluation, the timing of such gates, and that we need to bring them forward, and we should have done those gates much earlier than we did. He goes on, he says, also, we have a siloed organization, so going beyond the boundaries of those organizations in terms of development and also sales, I think that could have been much smoother. And then going forward in our own titles and third-party titles, we do have many different views or windows, and we want to be able to select the right and optimal windows so that we can deploy them on our own platform without cannibalization, so that we can maximize our performance in terms of title launches. That's all I have, and that's a lot of words that really don't say anything. But earlier in the call, Sony's senior vice president for finance did talk about some of the recent successes and failures in terms of live services. They mentioned that they launched 2 of them. Helldivers 2 was a huge hit. I think it has sold about 15 million copies, while Concord ended up being shut down. Never reached 25,000 sales. That's insane to me, especially the investment they made into that studio in that game. We gained a lot of experience and learned a lot from both, I guess. We intend to share the lessons learned from our successes and failures across our studios, including in the areas of title development management, as well as the process of continually adding expanded content and scaling the service after its release. So as to strengthen our development management system, we intend to build on an optimum title portfolio during the current mid-range plan period that combines single-player games, which are our strengths, that is very much their strengths, and they really should be leaning on that, and which have a higher predictability of becoming hits due to our proven IP with live service games that pursue upside while taking on a certain amount of risk upon release. And I don't think Sony's going to be learning many lessons from Concord. They're only going to continue down this road, which obviously makes people a little bit worried about them, owning a studio like Fromsoft. And I think those are very much valid concerns. But we did see Sony also talking about the PSN requirement. They were asked about this in a recent investor call, and they have continued to double down in saying that this is needed for safety. Yeah, to make people safe with their games, which single player, that doesn't make sense at all. But Sony's president, chief operating officer, and CFO, Hiroki Totoki, said PSN integration is necessary to ensure everyone can safely enjoy its games. We have learned a lot. They keep saying they learned a lot. The way to face the issues regarding PC, for instance, the PlayStation accounts that we have offered, by offering them, for instance, sometimes that tends to invite pushback. But for the live service games, in order to maintain order of the gaming so that anybody can enjoy the game safely, we need to create an environment conducive to that. And of course, enjoying the games freely. Having some restrictions, we may not call it a rule, but to ask the users and gamers to follow the manner, and that balance is very important. We have to continue to seek the best way to achieve this, which just doesn't explain why they have this requirement even in their single player experiences. And they just don't want to say it. It's all about data harvesting. They want that precious data about, MAU. They want that. That is the reason why they've been pushing for this, even despite many users being left out and not being able to even purchase these games because of the PSN requirement. It just feels like a foolish move on Sony's part, but they're continuing to double down, and their answer is that they want people to be safe in their games, so they have this there, which it's just silly in my opinion. Blizzard Entertainment, out of any and all companies in this video game industry, has had more ups and downs than really anybody the last couple of years. We did see Overwatch getting Overwatch Classic. That was introduced. It was a very smart decision in my opinion. A lot of people love those glory days of Overwatch, but there are problems with this because a lot of people point out the glory days of Overwatch happened a little bit after launch, in which updates came about and improvements, and those are things that very much should be factored into Overwatch Classic. So there has been a little bit of a mixed reception with this introduction, and also the fact that Overwatch 2 really is just Overwatch 1.5 in many regards. So I think some people are happy to see 6v6 back in this form, and seeing the old maps and everything back. But I think a lot of people feel like that Blizzard could have done a better job with its implementation. We have also seen that the Overwatch franchise is only going to continue growing, and this is the next logical move, as Overwatch Mobile is in development at Blizzard. Just one of those things that makes sense. All these big franchises eventually get their mobile adaptation, and Overwatch is the next. We did see Blizzard celebrating the 30th anniversary of Warcraft with a recent stream and a couple of really interesting announcements, including remastered versions of Warcraft 1 and 2. There weren't anything earth-shattering. They didn't need to be, and fortunately Blizzard didn't make any massive promises this time around. These remasters have brand new hand-drawn visuals that capture the original art style from each game, and you'll be able to swap between the original graphics and the remastered versions in real time, said the senior manager of Warcraft RTS, and this is all that was needed with that experience, and I think a lot of people are grateful for it, although it really is just barely remasters. It was also said that Warcraft 3 got another massive update, in which there was some updates to the visuals, nothing, to the original promises that were envisioned, because Warcraft 3 Reforged notoriously was a massive disaster because Blizzard had massive ambitions for it, and a lot of that was cut due to the Activision management at the time, Bobby Kotick cutting the budget and everything, and the project just ended up being an absolute disaster in so many regards, with missing features, and the visuals, the upgrades just weren't enough, especially to the promises that Blizzard made to gamers at the time. Infamously, Blizzard did change its refund policy. They apologized, but actions speak louder than words. And similar to the GTA Trilogy, which released years ago and just got a massive overhaul and update a couple of days ago, we talked about that in a separate video, Blizzard's Warcraft 3 Reforged Patch 2.0 overhauls the environments and lighting and revamps the user interface, according to Sean. In addition, we are up-resing all classic Warcraft 3 assets to HD, improvements that are very much happy, but probably too little too late, honestly. But the Warcraft 30th anniversary stream was a massive success. There was a lot of really cool announcements, nothing that you really can look at and laugh at because it just was good. We did see Blizzard relaunching WoW Classic with all new fresh ROMs. This was awesome to see, giving players another chance to experience WoW's earliest era. We're bringing you the classic experience. But we did see some controversy in regards to microtransactions. This is an excerpt that comes from Jason Schreier's recent book in regards to Blizzard, and a revelation that is unflattering just in the eyes stories of what Microsoft is doing with this company, or maybe not doing. Former Blizzard president Mike Ybarra apparently planned to cut down the microtransactions in Diablo 4 and reboot Overwatch before the Microsoft buyout. And in Jason Schreier's recent book, he reported these details and did mention that how any of this would work, it was not mentioned, but his departure kept it from ever coming to fruition. And based on the recent microtransaction controversy, like a $90 World of Warcraft mount, doesn't appear that Microsoft at all cares, and they want to keep on bringing in the money. And I think it is important to understand these microtransactions, especially in Diablo 4, especially with leaked reports, they made $150 million. That is money that Microsoft and Blizzard are not going to be losing out on. So as unpopular as the microtransactions are in these games, they're only going to continue because these live service, the recurrent consumer spending, that's what this industry values the most nowadays. Now, a number of weeks ago, we discussed reports that Blizzard supposedly was looking to revive StarCraft with another shooter experience, especially on the heels of Space Marine 2 being a massive success. It makes sense to see Blizzard investing into that property again. They've been trying to greenlight a project like this for years. I think this is the third time that they're doing it, but we got even further indication that this project is alive, as Blizzard was spotted to be hiring for an open world shooter game, and yes, many people are pointing that this is likely StarCraft related, which, hey, after Space Marine 2, it is nice to see that a lot of these companies are realizing that people definitely want these experiences. These are the types of games that players want, and if that means Blizzard finally reviving StarCraft, it's just music to my ears. But yes, this was another detail that was revealed by Jason Schreier in his recent book, and it did contain a passage mentioning that a StarCraft shooter was or is in development at Blizzard, and it was rumored to be led by Dan Hay, the former Ubisoft and Far Cry veteran who joined Blizzard as vice president and general manager in 2022. We've seen a lot of cancellations over the years at Blizzard, so there is no indication, at least yet, that this project will make it to the finish line, but right now my hopes are up, especially because there are other games that I think Blizzard is looking at, and they think that they can have similar success like Space Marine 2. Anyway, busy times going on in the video game industry with some potential massive moves coming in the near future. Let me know your thoughts on all of the news down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, or if you found any informative value. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.